And most of us are here to learn, to relearn, and most importantly, to unlearn. We have a vast, knowledgeable speakers here at this conference, so I hope you guys are as excited as I am. My name is Tabile Nokolo-Butelezi. I'll be the program director for this conference. I'm a founder and executive director of the Tabile Butelezi Foundation, which deals with youth and community development. I'm also a PhD candidate at the Durban University of Technology under public administration. I'm also employed by DUT under the Cornerstone Center for General Education. So I'm very excited and eager to learn from all the speakers here today. Before we start, I'd like to call upon Tandiwe class from DDP, who will be here to give us an official opening and welcome so that we can definitely start. I will be strict on time, unfortunately. We have to observe all the time management here. So I will give Tandiwe class exactly 5 minutes to do her opening and welcome. Very clap hands for her as well.
The program director has said, my name is Tandiwe class, and it is a pleasure of mine to welcome you to DDP's Women, Democracy and Leadership Conference under the theme of Reinvigorating the Fight Against Systematic Power Imbalances and Increased Access to Positions of Power for Women. This is quite a powerful theme, if I have to say so myself. When Umbali approached me with her concept note for this event, I was really taken by this theme because, firstly, I strongly believe that we as women are capable of holding positions of power. It is evident in history that women have played a pivotal role to where we are today. So it is evident that we are more than capable of occupying spaces of leadership. Not only in history is it proven, but even today, in this very room, at this very moment, with the speakers that we have, it shows that we are heading into the right direction as women to claim our place in leadership. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. Please do enjoy the day, and I hope that you are looking forward to engaging and having fruitful conversations and engaging with the content of the day. Thank you so much. Please do enjoy your day.
Thank you so much. Sunday, a very clap hands for her. On that note, we'll just start by introducing our keynotes, but the person who will introduce her will be Cecil Pinkesa. May we please clap hands for her? Okay, before that, Sis Tobega, are you here? Okay, I found her. So we'll just let Sis Tobega again 5 minutes to basically tell us the purpose for this conference. I did hear a lot about the advancement of women from Usisi Utandiwe, but I'd also like to hear from you the purpose behind the theme for today. So we clap hands for Usisi Utobek.
Good morning, friends. As has been stated, my name is Tobega Pinkesa. In 2018, following the death of Rhodes University students, Kenzani Masego, the Rhodes students organized a shutdown. A fellow male student had raped Kenzani, but was freely attending lectures, and no legal measures were taken against him. A typical example of male privilege in action. She died by suicide. Following her death, fellow students organized a shutdown and brought forward claims of countless experiences of sexual abuse at the institution. As is often expected, when one chants amandla, the anticipated response is awethu. However, on this somber day, when the SRC presidents chanted the customary amandla, the grief-stricken students responded asinau. I refer specifically to this particular incident at Rhodes University prior to today's discussions, because it begs us to also ask the question, sinawo na amandla singabantu besifazane? Do we have power as women? And what does this power look like? Beyond the romanticization of women's strength in the context of pain and suffering, when we talk about power and women's leadership, what does it look like in our mind's eyes? Amongst the many intended outcomes from today's conference is to develop an action plan aimed at informing DDP's Women's Political Leadership Program to enhance women's understanding of effective and progressive leadership in the current democracy, and to gain knowledge of existing policies that speak to political, legal, and social frameworks in relation to women. Women's leadership is highly encouraged in South Africa. However, how it materializes is always a point of conflict. Women taking up leadership roles is encouraged so long as it functions within a predetermined framework, one determined by gatekeepers, almost like a dog on a leash, and a very tight one, I must say. When women do take up positions of power, and when they own their voices and speak up on issues that affect them and the people they lead, they are silenced, disciplined, and rendered invisible. Parallel to the conversation on women's inclusion in leadership positions and spaces where decisions are made should be a conversation that centers the questions. When women do get into leadership positions, what measures are in place to support them in the work that they do? Are we considerate of the backlash and consequences that women in leadership face when going up against patriarchal power structures? In a time when the significance and symbolism of Women's Month has been reduced to the level of Mother's Day and Valentine's Day, today's theme of women in power and leadership is imperative. I hope that the conversations will be enriching. I hope that they will be enriching and that you will somehow be encouraged to do what you're able to do in the fight for a just and equal society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sister Tobeka, for outlining that so beautifully for us. And I would like to commend DDP for actually having an action plan post the conference, because oftentimes we do attend such gatherings and nothing substantial happens after the discussions, the conversations. So it's very fortunate that we're in the midst of such a progressive non-profits company. So I would like to commend DDP for taking a stance and making sure that the advancements and also the proceedings will be taken into action. So thank you very much for that, DDP. Now we'd like to go straight to our keynote address, which will be done by Pamela Munemo. But before I call her, I would like to call upon Usisi Pinkesa to introduce our keynote speaker, and thereafter we'll just go into the theme, which is reinvigorating the fight against systemic power imbalances and increased access to positions of power for women. Sis Mbaleka, over to you.
Good morning. Morning. Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you. My name is Mbadeta Kize. I'm from the Democracy Development Program. It's a pleasure to work on this project with women. It is indeed my forte. My task is very simple. It is to introduce Pamela Monemo, who is the Keynote Address for this gathering. Pamela is a women's rights and human rights activist. She is the founder of Center for Social Economic Transformation, which is a community development youth-led organization that prides itself in promoting social and economic liberty and freedom for women. The organization is currently based in South Africa, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. She is another feminist partner, which is a Pan-Africanist group of 17 feminists with the mission to foster, enable, and mobilize young women from Africa and diaspora, while bridging the gap between policy and implementation, intergovernmental, grassroots, and generational spaces. She organized an intergenerational dialogue for accountability in South Africa on economic justice and rights, which is one of the thematic topic and a commitment made by South Africa. She took part in the Beijing Plus 25 conference in Paris 2021 and engaged in insightful conversations like ways the money for girls and gender inequality why is it a men's issue. She studied international human rights and women health with Stanford University, and she is a lifetime she's a full-time law student at Pearson Institute of Higher Education. Ladies, can you please give a round of applause to Pamela Monemo? A round of applause for Pamela.
This mask to make us look happy. Hello, everyone. My name is Pam. I want to be called Pam. I'm so excited and really, really privileged to be amongst women like you, women of power, and you are looking amazing today. I have good news and bad news today. So I would like to start with bad news so we can get it out of the way and then we can just get started. The bad news is the world seems like it's going right upside down with the climate change on code red, gender-based violence, the issues in Afghanistan, the earthquake in Haiti, all of those issues. And unfortunately, men think they have it under control. And that's the big news. The good news is we're here and we're present and we want to be part of the conversation and part of the change. And I'm excited today because I just want to tell you a little bit about my story. When we were growing up, we were always, as women, as girls, as young girls, we were always told, say for example, I woke up late. My mom, the first thing she would say is, oh, you are going to embarrass us wherever you go. If I don't wash the dishes, you are so going to embarrass us wherever you go. And we were just taught to master home. We were not taught to lead as girls. We were not. This is the education that we learned from 3 years old going forward, while boys were taught to be leaders and strong and powerful and fight and violence, all of those things. That's why the word power, it's scary, but it's inherently as dangerous as what, physics or science. It's just power, and men and boys were taught power from a very young age, and we were basically robbed from learning leadership and power as girls. And
as I was told, and I believe we're all told that, oh, wherever you go, you're going to embarrass us, you're not going to make us proud. This is marriage we're being taught into. So we were taught to master marriage, we were taught to master homes, the kitchen and the bedroom, and that is supposed to be our fault as women. So yeah, we were robbed to learn about leadership. I am actually happy and excited that we all here today to learn leadership and empowerment and to relearn and to reinvigorate the power, the fight against systemic power imbalances. So it's not so much, it's not difficult. It has been a fight. It sounds boring now because we've been talking. And now we're about action. And as we move towards elections, this is the right time for us to actually talk about this. Because if we don't talk about it now, the systems and structures that are built to steal from us will continue stealing, because if we are not fighting and if we are not acting, we are being acted upon. I'm going to just, I like what Tobic said and described power to us. I want to also just talk about power and what democracy means for me and what it should mean for everyone in this room and everyone that's not in this room, that is supposed to be in this room. It is not a light responsibility, ladies and gentlemen, that I carry on my shoulders to be standing in front of all of you, talking about what seemed to now be a broken record as we reflect on the past and prepare for the future. The impetus of this moment is vitally important. I just want to repeat that moment, that the moment and the time and where we are right now, it's very important. After much talking and activism and deliberation, it has come to the moment that we want to reinvigorate the fight against systemic power imbalances this morning. So every day in our lives, we experience power and we move through systems of power that other people constructed. Power is supposed to reside with people, not within people. And that's what democracy also means to me. That power is for people. It determines how the government works, it determines how we live, and it decides how we carry out our own lives. I'm assuming because of the session title and the theme today, and the description, that everyone showed up here today with the assumption, or at least the agreement, that power needs to shift in order to transition from male-dominated system to an inclusive system. Leaders need to represent the people that they serve best, to understand their needs and their wants. So as long as we do not have enough women in power and in leadership positions, our concerns and needs and wants will never be fully met. And that's quite unfortunate. Across all sectors, in communities, societies, women have key contribution towards leadership and to make leadership a possibility and to change communities that are around them. So from politics, corporations to sport and STEM, diverse leadership benefits all of us. Systems, they are structures built to control and to maintain the status quo. And they tend to be inflexible because they are conservative in nature, and they screen out and discriminate the other. In this case, we are the other. Systemic barriers, gender biases, discrimination, and gender stereotypes, they continue to hold women back from rising in their careers, in politics, in the economy, and the society, which frequently limit the diversity of innovators who are trying to find solutions to the most pressing challenges in our country and our continent, from global change to politics, and for better solutions that benefit everybody. And we need more women leaders, we need more women in the parliament, we need more women at every table, really. We need more women leaders to represent us. what's funny is, who is representing us if we don't have, because we are the women, and then we have the most men representing us. How are they going to understand our challenges and what we need as women? The structures that are built and the systems that are built are meant to only better lives of people that are there. And whenever power is made or is structured in a way that whoever is in power stays there. When you're in power, you become powerful. We don't have a history of people that are in power that become powerless. You become more powerful and powerful. And if you're powerless, you become powerless. That is the question, and that's how it's built. So if we have men in power and not have women representing us, then we are going to become powerless. And it's unfortunate, we do not want that. This is supposed to be the moment that we're going to shift the conversation. And I really want to thank DDP for making this conversation possible. So to me, power is broad, but to briefly define it, it is the ability to control, influence, and to make to do. The way power is described most times, it sounds like the exact description of what would be the normal words that describes a man, which is whether like strong or harsh or strength or muscular or dangerous, and women are not taught to be dangerous. We are not supposed to be in dangerous spaces. And so power wasn't meant for us. That's what we were taught to understand and to agree on as women. So this is why we will always assert their power. They will always assert their power because they are not ready to receive and to accept women in power and to accept our power. And this really just takes me right into the issue of gender-based violence. As we observed the rise of death and violence in homes during the lockdown, when both women and men were at home, this issue, we can't exactly ignore the interconnectedness of these issues, how they want to keep the power. We had at least 2,695 deaths of both women and children during the lockdown from 2020 to 2021, and that is bad. And this makes femicide 5 times higher in South Africa than the average global number, and that is a scary number. From my observation and understanding, this just explains why they don't want us to have power, because we were taught to master homes, right? And as we were taught to master homes, when we were both locked down in the home, and we are powerful at home, and then we have men with us inside for 4 months, and they can't accept our power. So they decided to reassert their power by killing and beating, and this just led to the record high, time high of femicide and deaths and violence for women, because men, they were not ready. It was a shock to them that women are powerful at home. We control the kitchen, we control the dining, we control the bathroom, we control things around us at home, and they're just used to being out there in the economy, in politics, and being at home with us was a shock, and they decided to reassert their power. Yeah, and this is the situation we're at. So we are going to have to, like the situation that just leads us to be fighting for safe spaces and security and just for safety and keeping the home safe for us. And then while we are in fear and just in a cocoon of fear and rounded up in all of these issues of violence, we want a safe space for our children. We are going to, if we do not get out of that, we are going to stay there and continue addressing homes and domestic violence and not be able to go out and explore the power and leadership that is surrounding us and that awaits for us. That's how it's structured, and that's how I noticed that this is actually a system, and it's very intentional. So, I just want to explain from I was reading Eric Liu, and he noted that there's 6 forms of power. There's physical power, there's wealth, there's state action, social norms, ideas, and numbers. And I just want to talk about state action, numbers, and social norms. My focus really is on these 3 issues because when it comes to social norms, ideologies that rigidly limit opportunities, participation, and autonomy for some members of the population cause whole groups of people to be left behind. So us talking about leadership and democracy and empowerment for women today, we don't want to leave anyone behind. Leadership is for everyone, leadership suits everyone. There is no such thing that men are the only people that are able to lead. We're just scared of the power that we have. They're just not ready for the power that we have. Because anyway, there's just a lot of corruption when it comes to men in power. And we as women, when you empower a woman, you empower the whole communities. Because we were brought up to care, and we care about children, about our communities, about our families. And when you do empower a woman, you tend to empower the whole community. You tend to feed everyone around you. I do not think that when I get money, a lot of money, I am going to travel around and keep it just on me. When there's children suffering, when there's child marriages, when there's just a lot of suffering and homelessness around us, I don't think that's how we build. So it's unfortunate that we were robbed of learning power, but it's also fortunate that we were taught to care as women. And it also comes, it's just in our system, in our blood, that we care, we are able to do that. So when you empower a woman, you tend to empower everyone that's around them, everyone that's affected by whatever is going on around them. Fundamentalists, whether cultural, religious, political, or economic, they similarly ascribe rigid beliefs about the roles and values of different groups of people. In doing so, fundamentalist beliefs commonly focus on women's bodies, sexuality, and decisions, systematically limiting women's participation in every aspect of private and public life. So many countries continue to have high rates of child, early, and forced marriages, which affect all aspects of girls' well-being, in addition to other forms of violence against women, systematic rape, and political, physical, and sexual violence, justified in the name of culture, custom, or religion, with the terms used synonymously, and exercised with rampant impunity. When these ideologies shape policies and laws, women, sexually and gender diverse groups, single or unmarried women, human rights defenders, they are all left behind because of the culture that we think we should carry. So as we talk of culture, it also goes right into state action, which is decision-making, leadership, and politics, when women are underrepresented in public decisions and making policies. It may not reflect their needs and priorities. If we are underrepresented, they won't be able to notice or to realize or to acknowledge our needs and priorities. If we do not take decisive action to empower and enable more women to claim leadership in politics and public decision making, we will not reach a parity at the highest level for another at least 130 years. So what we can actually do is to support female candidates and to vote in our numbers. This takes me to the power that is available in numbers as well. It's to support and to vote for our female candidates, to support community outreaches and capacity building training for women facing multiple intersecting forms of discrimination to participate in public life and in politics. We need to call for gender quotas to be adopted and to be enforced and for bolder targets for equal representation for women. We need to demand that violence against women in political, public life, and both online and offline, this should be criminalized and should be prevented. We need to incentivize political parties to finance women candidates' campaigns and to promote their leadership. So in my opinion, power is never static. Like I said, it's either you are not taking action or you are being acted upon. So every day we have a chance to practice and to take power. We should wake up and do it every day, because I do it every day. Everything around us is leading us to notice the structural imbalances in our stories. Maybe you should sit down, as men as well, we should sit down together and listen and to start dismantling the broken systems and structures. Policies should be designed to meet the state of equilibrium. In my opinion, this is democracy. It was never meant to be ready to meet women and their needs. Politics was designed to serve a fraction of society that sees power differently. Even the administration was structured to exclude females and is driven by propaganda that favors male dominance. We need to recenter the role of power in our conversations. We need to recenter the role of power in everything we do, on every table we sit, and everywhere we campaign, and everyone we meet. We need to recenter the conversation and what power should mean to all of us. This is the right time to co-create the world we want to see, and to change the narrative and have a paradigm shift, and to take a close look at where the world is going, because women are disenfranchised. We have always been hearing women's issues, and we need to believe women, we need to trust women, we need to accept them to lead, and to ignore the whole issue is to totally miss the point. And that brings me to the end of my speech, but I would like to say that in numbers, power is like water. It flows like a current, and it flows all around us. The only reason why the people in power are in power is only because we give it to them. We give it to them because we can. So the same way we give it to them is the same way we can give it to our women on this table, our women that are campaigning. So the only reason whatsoever they have power is because we hand it over to them. We give it to them, we vote for them. How about we vote in our numbers for our women here? Our women that are campaigning and that are promising a better future and a better life for all of us. And that is not a lie. Ladies and gentlemen, like I said, when a woman is in power, she empowers everyone else around them. They care for everyone else around them. We give it to them, and we can give it to our women around us. And the Numbers Institute, we give them seats, the men, we give them seats, which we can also give to our women. I think we can do that, and that is the beauty of democracy. If we really have it, then that's how we can take advantage and use democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really, this topic is strong. It's a strong theme, and I think we can really make a change around us, and we can really start today. It is true with our peers that we give them power. It's true with our colleagues that we give them power. It's true in our communities. We see that we give people power. Even in relationship, you give someone power. We can do that to our women. We can do that to our women that are campaigning for power, that are campaigning to have seats in the parliament. It's true everywhere that we give people power. So we are able. That is my true belief. No one can wield power except as others wield power. The power that anyone holds over us, it originates from us. And it can ultimately be reclaimed and redirected to us, by us. My job is to critique the world and anyone that refuses to do better. And how I choose to affect change and to effect change is to speak up. That is why I'm here today, to speak about power and leadership and democracy. And I think what we can do going forward is to take power and hand it over to where it belongs. Thank you so much. Thank
you very much. That's Michelle, everyone. That was well articulated, and I really love the fact that you're honest in saying it's not a light subject. It takes time. And when you talk about reinvigoration, It takes energy, it takes strength, it takes a community. And when you spoke about empowering a woman, you empower the whole nation. It's really true. And I must say that when besifazane women, we do have the power. It's just that we fail to exercise the power. If we go into our homes, I'll just go to where I'm from. I live in Wamash, and around my area, most of the houses are led by women. There's no men. The kids are well fed, well taken care of, they are educated, they are well mannered, and they are groomed by women without men. So that is evidence of how much power we have. It's just that I'm not sure whether it's because we are not taught, if that is power, us being there, being the backbones of our families, if that's exercising power. So I really commend you by saying, you talk about the importance of unlearning. I think it's very important that us as women here in this congregation, we really need to assess the physics of unlearning. Unlearning the notions of the past that we are not great enough, we need a man, because it's us that go into the voting station and say, hey, what will we be like if a leader or a president is a woman? It's us. So I love the fact that you question us as well, the role that we have in this imbalance. So it's really up to us as women to gather together to question and also to find solutions. So I really thank you for having such a powerful notion. Mary, clap hands for her on that. I'd like to open a session for questions and answer towards our keynotes. So if you can just kindly come here and stand before us while we just give the roaming mic. If someone has a roaming mic, or I think it's better for the questions to be addressed at that mic there at the center. So if you can just kindly position yourself there. So if you have any questions regarding what you spoke about, or you want to further discuss what you said regarding the theme, you are more than welcome to do so at the mic over there. You may go ahead.
Not trying to defend, how she was raised, but I wanted to acknowledge, because fortunately at the end of her speech, she started to acknowledge, she started to indicate that she is there now, she is speaking here, she is powerful, she's young, she's black because of how she was raised. How do we then, work together and make sure that we are dealing with the PhD, the pull head down syndrome? We are our own enemies. We are our first enemies. So I am not trying to defend, I might be representing, this age group you can see, but I'm not trying to defend it, but I want to take out the positive out of the negative. That says you are here because you are responsible, and that's how you were taught. That's how you were taught to say, if you are going to speak in an event, you need to be on time. That's what your mama told you. She taught you that embarrassed if you are coming late in an event and you were here, you were on time. Amanda to that woman. Yeah. So it was not a matter of a question, it was just a comment to kind of endorse and put emphasis on what you are presenting. And I agree with you fully, that this issue, this theme that is raised today, and more especially being, coordinated by young people, how do we make sure? And I want to go back, I think it was the person who introduced the session, I can't remember the name, the age and COVID after effects. She spoke about women, kind of redirecting the slogan that say, Amandla asinawo. Amandla sinawo. Watinda bafazi, watindi mbokoto. We are here because of what happened in roads. We are here to strategize. We are here to reimagine. We are here to talk to ourselves and to say, how can we do things differently? How do we make sure that we whisper in one's ear and say, you are so beautiful, you are so powerful, you can go deeper and higher in life. How do we make sure that we don't only look at ourselves and see ourselves as the better people in the society? How do we make sure that we embrace each other? How do we make sure that we stand, our ground and say, I am who I am, and I know who I am. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Good morning, ladies. Good morning. Please excuse my disheveled appearance. I have an 8.5-year-old son, and this morning was very crazy. Hi, Pamela. It was so nice to hear you speak. I got so excited when I heard your CV and everything that you've done, especially your degrees of education. I think education is one way for us to empower ourselves. Pamela, you spoke about the importance of representation, which I fully agree with. I know in social media I use the hashtag, I'm so sorry, my back is very rude. On social media I use the hashtag for colored girls. Where I come from, in Newlands East, growing up, I didn't know anybody who went to law school. I didn't know anybody who holds positions in the profession I'm in now. You also spoke about us providing more opportunity for women to access positions of power. My concern is that power is one thing. What we achieve with it is entirely different altogether. I think we can be happy that as of 2019, our cabinet is made up of 50% women. We have an entire ministry that's dedicated to women and children. Yet the sad, sad thing is that our women who are representing us just aren't doing a good enough job. They're not. How are we holding them accountable? I understand we have a party representation system, so perhaps the accountability stems and should arise from the women within the political branch structures. It's not good enough for me to say we're going to have a quota system and send some sister up there. Because also I can attest within the professional environment, the sisterhood can very well be just window dressing, even amongst ourselves. So my issue is, let's send more women up, let's develop them, let's train them. When they get there, are we asking them the necessary questions? Thank you.
Representing us and women in the parliament, and still we have issues that needs to be addressed. So these are conversations that we should have every day. That's why we shouldn't shut up, because it's not necessary. When we shut up, then we are enacting a system that does not look at women or address their issues. So as we said, if we don't address these issues, we have at least 130 more years until we reach some form of equilibrium. So us talking and speaking every day, I think it's what we need to do to address issues in leadership, and keep teaching women how to lead, because most of us are so taught to lead, and because we only started to lead a few years ago, we are not too sure what to do, because still men have the voice, even when we have women in power. So I really do think that these are issues that we need to keep talking. It will spark a conversation in the parliament and on the right tables. I totally agree with you.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Joyce Namakusomi from Keynotes Community Organization in Wamashu. Thank you so much for opening this can of worms. I advocate for women and girls and LGBTQ community. And what we have started is a topic I think that will take for us as organization, that we open up dialogues, that we open up workshops, because we, as Mama has said, as women ourselves, we need to be educated, we need, to be equipped, because we've got this PhD syndrome. So my question is, how do we deal with this pull-me-down syndrome as women? Because we hate each other, It's obvious. We are always jealous. It's something that we inherited from our parents as well. you know, because when we grew up, you know, it's either our aunts or our mothers will talk bad about the next door mother. They would say they're ugly, they would say they use muti, you know, they would say they've got big bums or they don't have bums, you know, they say they've got, you know, thin legs or they've got big legs. You know, we've been always talking negative about each other, and so it's transferred to us. And if also we are talking the same language, it has transferred to our children as well. So how, as women, how do we move out from this homely Down syndrome, from this pretense system that we have, that we grew up, the system has been there. How do we pull ourselves out of the system? For an example, what you were saying about voting for women's candidates, it's what we are experiencing as well in our world. We had a woman candidate, but the first people who were against her was us as women. You know, they were even saying, we as women, when we went to our women's conference, we said for the next 15 years, we will raise up those same men to lead us as a country. It was us as women. So we want these men again. While they see that, you know, the car is rolling down the road of doom. So as women as well, we support the power that we see that, you know, is corrupt. How do we change our mindset as women that we support each other? Thank you.
We should have an intergenerational dialogue and involve our mothers and start from the first organized institution, which is the family, and teach girls how to be leaders and teach girls to lift up each other. I also think that it could also be a stereotype because I'm also a business owner. I have 3 businesses, and when I work with women, they normally don't stay on the same level. We should also build a culture of women that lift other women up. I think that because women, like I said, it's unfortunate, but also a good thing later that we were not taught to lead, and we were taught to know that the man is the head and remains like that culturally everywhere, on every table and on every seat. That's why women still don't believe that women can actually lead. But we can change the conversation, and we can teach our children and women and have a dialogue, intergenerational dialogue with our mothers, our elders, and the youth, and teach them and let them know that women can actually lead. We have a lot of good examples of women leading and how they prosper. I can give you a good example of New Zealand right now. There's a female president in New Zealand. And when COVID started, she closed down the country, and no one could come in. Another case, I think some few days ago, they closed again the country. They never went broke. No one stopped going to. They only closed the borders. No one stopped going to work. Their economy blossomed, and that's what a woman leader can do. So we can teach each other that women can actually lead. We have very good examples of women leading. So we can have those practical examples and show them that this woman led and this happened. This woman led and this happened. I really do think that we can. This is a conversation that needs to be had, and more often. So I think what we can do is also have some dialogues, accountability dialogues, and talk with our leaders and talk with our mothers and just bring the community together and readdress and keep talking about this issue and teaching each other what women can do when they lead. I really do. I think that's a good question. I think we can do it. We can really, really do something about it. We can keep the conversation going, keep talking about it. A change is actually possible. We know that.
Right. And during the women's conference, I know you well because I served as a counselor prior, 2011. So we know what men do to us. But what we do, we start bringing another woman down because we belong to a political party. Whichever political party we are, let's support a woman, irrespective of what party, where you come from. So I am saying, Pamela, a job well done. I am currently concluding my master's this year and hoping next year that I will go for PhD. I'm saying we must not look at ourselves as women as what age we are. Age is only a number. We must continue and we must grow from strength to strength. Next year, 2022, I already visioned myself for going for my PhD. I was an RCL rep for 4 terms in our campus, and I was victimized by men just because I have a mouth to speak and not to be silent. Men don't all, some men, not all. Like we said, not all Africans are bad. There are criminal elements within the African society. When I say African society, I mean every color, not a particular black or particular Indian people. What has happened recently in the unrest is uncalled for. People have no right to take one's life away. They have used the spark. There was one spark of looting that raised an alarm to use this as an opportunity. And we know where it's coming from. Councillors are there, but they are frightened to tackle the drug issue. They're frightened to tackle the security companies. They are scared. Why? You shouldn't be scared. You're a public servant. There was one councillor in Phoenix when I wrote in the editor's column, during this time I had to support my family, while the community voted for him. And election time, that article I'm going to be referring it to. As I said, I stand here as a fearless woman, and I support women must be growing to be fearless. They must not be undermined. In my house, I respect my husband, but I don't fear him. There's a big difference. You respect, but you don't fear. There are things that I need to correct, I will correct without fear. So please, women, don't fear, but respect. And in the manner where you say it is very, very important. And remember, age is just a number. Please be like Pam. I support Pam, other women that are getting educated. I'm saying let us now, in this generation, take the next generation into a brighter future. Amanda!
Thank you very much. On that note, may I please pause here? We have another full house on the other end. So we'll just take 2 questions on the other side, and then move. Is that fine with you? Thank you very much.
Good morning again. I'm sorry about the technology. This 4IR situation gets to us sometimes. I just want to introduce myself firstly. I'm sorry for the ladies that have my back. But yeah, I can't, but I'll try. You've got my back. Thank you so much. My name is Pinkesa. I am a child born and raised in a village. I am here representing the village as much as I am working now here in Durban. I'm representing those ladies in the villages, those women, especially in the villages. I think we will do, firstly, Pamela, I took notes. Thank you so much for everything that you've shared here this morning. It's very insightful and it's very powerful. I think we will do a little bit of an injustice if we talk about how powerful we are and we don't mention the things that disempower us as women. And I think we've mentioned some of them already. But there's one specific one that is close to my heart, which is mental health. And I want to talk about depression, those kind of things that actually disempower us, and we need to engage about such things. How do we then take our power back from such situations? Some of us were raised by domestic workers, okay, proudly, Amanda, and there were some things that disempowered us because we didn't have access to certain things. So poverty can disempower a person. But I just want us to look at the mental health side of things. Speak about depression, also in these platforms. How do we take back our power after we have lost it? Let us engage, let us think about such things. That is just my comment. I know some of them have been mentioned, the full Down syndrome, the gender violence. Those are the things that actually steal our power as women. We just need to take our power back. Thank you.
That issue. I also suffered with depression when I was 20. I'm 26. And what happened, I went on a job interview and I was raped. Yes. And that's why I mentioned the interconnectedness of the issues, power and how it's used on every platform and how it affects us as women. A person in power took advantage of me, and it's a disgrace, it's disgusting, and it's literally someone doing whatever they want with your body without your consent. I'm working on a project called No is a Complete Sentence. So when it came to justice, nothing was done on that guy. He is running around doing whatever he's doing, and he's fine. I moved on from that. I suffered from depression for 2 years, and I couldn't work or go to school. It really pulled me down to an extent that I did actually survive suicide 3 times. That's how bad it can get to a person. They use power to do what they want with you, to humiliate you, to feel disgusting, and to just, I don't know, because they are men and they were in power and he was in a position of power and he was the one who was going to interview me or give me a job and just took advantage. So it's totally an issue that we should talk about depression. And a lot of women do suffer from depression. We don't have that conversation. A lot of women, if it says that 1 in 10 women suffers from depression after giving birth, then it means that a lot of women, they suffer from depression without actually knowing it. And it's also not to go back to white and black, but it's called a white person's disease. We are not accepting of the fact that we can also suffer from depression because we're just too strong. We can also be vulnerable. And it's an issue that really needs to be spoken about. And it's true that we need to address all issues from the grassroots level, because that's where we have a lot of women, and we need to give a lot of education on issues like this, issues like power, mental health, and everything pertaining empowerment. I really think we need to address that issue. Thank you so much for your question.
And I would just like to thank Pam for her very powerful presentation. So while I was listening to her presentation, I actually had so many comments, but now I'm actually left with more questions than anything else. So what I wanted to ask is that whenever we're talking about power, we always referring to, you know, something that has been defined by men or something that we see, happening with men through men. So my question is that, what does authentic women power look like to you? And also, my other question is, we speak about women-led homes or single mother-led homes as, something to celebrate. I'm not saying that it's something that we shouldn't celebrate, but we see it as something to celebrate, but is it really something to celebrate? And also, is it a good thing? How can we find balance for both the positive male and female strengths to coexist? So those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, so on your first question, I think for me, of course, we already biologically defined. Women are weak, the bonds, just our biology. I think power shouldn't be physical. Men use power in all its senses. Physical power, for me, it can have a lot of definitions. But what we define power for me is to do what you can do. What we can do as women is to lead. And we know that. It's just really no, do we need degrees? Do we need I don't know, do we need to go overseas to learn how power is when we know that you can actually lead women into empowerment, into equality? I think power would be defined as to do what you can do. Because when someone is in power, when we have a lot of women in power, they use it to make to do. And what we can do is to use that, is to grab it and do what we can do. It doesn't need to be physical, it doesn't need to be violence, it doesn't need to be corruption, because they use it for a whole lot of things. And it can be dangerous, but we want power to be able to represent. So I really do think that power is, if it's given to us, it would mean to empower other women and to empower communities and to lead. That's what it would mean for me personally. I'm not sure about others, but that's what it would mean for me. And your second question was on families that are led by only women. I don't think it's not anything to congratulate each other or to celebrate, because I mentioned that family is the first organized institution, and it remains so because what builds character and what structures our own characters as we grow up. And I don't think that having women-led, like families is supposed to be celebrated. Divorces are high and all those things. This is one of the things that I say is sad news, because families are getting destroyed, and it's. I don't know if we can do anything about it, but I'm sure that there is something that we can do. We cannot celebrate a family because it's led by a woman, which is a good thing because we're already trained to take care of a family. But some of the problems that we want to give ourselves is also on men. So equality is as much a woman's issue as much as it is a man's issue, because we don't inflict this on us. Equality is something that we've been talking about for a long time, and it's taken most of the times by men and by force. And if a woman decides to leave a home because of some sort of violence, which may lead into depression, I think it's a good thing. So when we talk about these things, I really, honestly, would really talk about the interconnectedness of how all of this is happening. We don't want to put it on ourselves, but it also goes back to the topic of power and how men can use it to just do anything they want, whether in the family, in the community, in politics, and everywhere else. So this conversation, like I said, is a really deep conversation, and it touches a lot of issues. And so conversations like this need to happen, and I think it's also a conversation that needs to happen on another platform, because it's huge. It's huge, and it really needs to be tackled.
Keynotes of Cecil Pinkesa, maybe clap hands for her. And thank you very much for the fruitful engagement from our attendees. Now we'll go to the second discussion led by Uphakamile. So I'll just do an introduction of Cecil Pinkesa, and then she'll call on her speakers and her panelists to further delegate themselves. So Pinkesa Masibuko is a young, enthusiastic female from a small town called Ulundi in KwaZulu-Natal. She holds 2 degrees, Bachelor of Education as well as Honours in Curriculum Studies, which were both completed with summa cum laude, including numerous Dean's Commendations and Certificates of Merits at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. She has led in a great roles, namely UKZN Golden Key President of Untitled Chapter, Mentor Leader for AMMS, which is Mentorship Program, and the Resident Assistant at DSRA, a tutor, as well as Head of Department in the Languages at EETP. She has received a great number of awards in the School of Education Excellence Awards and UKZN Scholarships Awards for her academic excellence. Also, she was selected to represent UKZN in Germany on an exchange program based on her academic merits, leadership, and community engagement roles. Subsequently, she was recognized as one of UKZN's top 40 students for 2018 and 2019 subsequently. Currently, she is doing her Master's in Education degree, working within the Academic Development Office at UKZN Edgewood campus. Also, she is passionate about taking the active role in the progressive movement. This is evident in her role as an editor of a creative network magazine that offers educational support and engagement to promote sustainable living within communities. Moreover, Paramile is the founder and CEO of the Paramile Masibuko Foundation that positively enhances the lives of young people by implementing developmental initiatives that focus on academic, leadership, and community engagement. Paramile is truly a leader in action for positive change. Ladies and gentlemen, our chairperson for the following panel discussion, Paramile Masibuko.
Very warm good morning to abantu besifazane. Sanibonani. Sanibonani Zimbabwe. Ayibona izabini. Sanibonani Zimbabwe. Niyaphila namhlanje. Thank you so much, Shane, for introducing me so well. I must say, when people or when the program director introduces you, it always gets crazy because you're like, oh my God, I actually spoke cum laude 2 times. How is that possible? A short girl like me. So this just tells you that anything is possible if you imagine it. You can simply create it. So women, women stand up. You can do it. You can achieve anything you set your mind into. But she all along, which the power is within us, and the power doesn't have to be physical, but be smart. All right, so let me do I'm going to be chairing the next session. So the next session is all about capitalizing in policies that speak to political, legal, and social frameworks to achieve national gender equality and inclusion. So I'm going to be introducing my 2 speakers, my very powerful speakers. I'm going to start with Miss Nicole. I'm just going to read her biography. Ms. Nicole Graham is a councillor and the leader of the Democratic Alliance in eThekwini Council. She served on the executive committee of council, the youngest person to ever do so, when elected in 2018, and this leads to the opposition in the city. She studied law and politics at UKZN and is passionate about justice, gender, and growth. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please give a warm round of applause for Miss Nicole Graham. Thank you so much. And then now I'm going to be moving to my second speaker. My second speaker is Cecil Pinkesa. Started at FET College, where she finished her higher certificate in communications. She then went to study DUT, where she could not finish a diploma in communication due to financial constraints. She is currently enrolled in UNISA, where she is completing her BA Law degree with majors in criminology. She served in Kusati, KZN, Utumulu District Municipality, and Department of Energy. I'm going to be reading now the life and the leadership roles in politics that she has served in. Cecil Pinkesa joined the ANC Youth League and COSAS at the age of 14, where she was in high school. She then led in COSAS as the provincial treasurer and later as a provisional chairperson of COSAS in KwaZulu-Natal. She was elected as president of the SRC in FET College and served in ISASCO as a PEC member in KwaZulu-Natal. Mkhize was then elected in her branch, Kululeko branch, in Kandla sub-region as the branch secretary of the ANC Youth League. She then went on to serve as the ANC Youth League regional deputy secretary in Musa region, which was known as the North Coast region at the time. She got elected to serve in the ANC Youth League, NES, and NCW 2015, where she was the youngest in the executive at the age of 23. In 2019, she was elected as the ANC branch deputy chair in her branch, Kululeko branch. She is currently serving as the NYTT member and the ANC Youth League national spokesperson. Cecil Pinkesa recently got South Africa talking when she stood up and visited Phoenix after the racial killings that occurred during the unrest. She has been characterized as a brave young woman who fights fearlessly against injustices and inequalities. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please give a round of applause for our second speaker, Cecil Pinkesa. I think it's evident that we should really give a round of applause to DDP for really initiating this unwelcoming but necessary conversational settings that we are here today, and I really applaud the ladies for joining me today. And I'm going to take a sit, and I'm going to start with Nicole, just to start with your engagement in terms of our topic of capitalizing in policies that speak to political, legal, and social frameworks to achieve the national gender equality and inclusion. Over to you.
Sure, thanks, Pagamila. Would you like me to sit here or speak there?
I think you can sit here. Yes, thank you.
Perfect. So thank you very much, everyone. These lights are quite bright, so I can't see many of you, but I imagine that you're smiling. Well, I hope so. If you're scowling, I can't see you. So I'd really like to thank the DDP for this opportunity, as well as the Conrad Adenauer Stiftung, which I believe is a sponsor today. And I am really honored to be here amongst this company and with all of you to have a chat about the topic today. I think today's topic is really important, and I'll come to that in a minute. And I was really excited to hear Pam speak earlier. Her call to arms about voting for women was really encouraging to me. I'm actually running for office for the third time this year. So if you are on the hunt for a candidate to vote for, I will leave some business cards in the foyer. That was a joke, wasn't it? So I've been in politics as a public representative for the past 10 years. I was elected when I was 21, and I lead the opposition effectively in the eThekwini Council. But I don't want to necessarily talk from a political party point of view, in as much as I want to talk from my experiences as a woman in politics and what I've learned in that space and what I think we need to do as women in that space, and as men, to be honest, in that space, to really encapsulate this idea of power. And I'm glad we're talking about power, because a lot of the time when we deal with Women's Month and women's issues, it's a very feel-good thing. You know, a lot of women's events you go to, there's a prayer and a song and a goodie bag and all of these things, but you don't actually get to the crux of what are the hard questions, what are the conversations we need to have to move forward, both as women in the political sphere and women in society. And I think power is a key component of that, and something that we need to be more open about discussing and practicing. And I want to come almost immediately to the issue of representation. The brief that we were given by the DDP speaks to the framework within which we work.
Yeah.
And in South Africa, we have a really good framework, to be honest. We have got, like one of the questions that was mentioned earlier from Advocate Maggie Brown, we have a framework that provides a really good legislative capacity. You know, we've got literally discrimination outlawed at every level. We've got an international framework and a regional framework that allows for the full political, legal, social equality of women. And we have, at most levels, the equal representation of women in our political life. But I think we must be honest and say that's mostly due to the ANC's quota system. And I don't necessarily believe that that's a real representation of our society. And I think Pamela encapsulated that nicely in her presentation about speaking about what women are taught and what men are taught and how that presents itself in public life. So on paper, I think South Africa is doing really well as a country. But does representation, having women in seats, equal power? Does it equal political power? And I think we need to unpack what political power is. I think political power is the ability to influence decisions and influence outcomes. And how do we achieve that? How do we achieve political power? Because there are lots of people in public office who have absolutely no power. I was in a position once where I had no power. I like to think I have a bit more power now. But there are lots of people who have quite a lot of power and lots of people who have no power in public office. And I think we need to draw that distinction because having a seat, whether you are in cabinet, in parliament, a councillor, does not necessarily mean you have the ability to influence decisions or outcomes. So I think that today what I'll argue, first of all, is that, I'm a politician, we don't talk, we argue points, we've got to make the point. And I think that the point is that political power also doesn't necessarily equal outcomes for women. And here I'm talking about political power for women doesn't necessarily equal political outcomes for women. And I think we must also consider what political outcomes for women look like. We've got the system whereby we prioritize 50-50 representation, we prioritize gender mainstreaming, but there's also a lot of basic service delivery components and government progress and growth that actually have tangible outcomes for women's lives. Things like effective policing, things like proper growing economy in which women can participate, things like effective education, proper rural development, agricultural reform. All of those things change the lives of women when they're done properly. So functioning governments are not just about having women's policies necessarily, but also working and getting the basics right and affecting, more than half the population that women comprise. There are two interesting case studies that I want to use to discuss the point of women's representation not equaling women's power. And I believe that the quota system has achieved some aims, but it's also taken women out of the competitive political space in many instances. I was in Zimbabwe speaking at a conference in 2014, and I met a really brilliant young woman. I wish I could remember her name. I should have made better notes at the time. And in Zim, they have a system of two houses like we do. It's a pretty similar system, to be honest. They've got a Senate, which is like our National Council of Provinces, with regional representation, and they've got a National Assembly. And in their National Assembly, they have 210 seats from constituencies, like our ward councillors are elected, and they have 60 seats reserved for women. And the woman that I met lived in Harare. She was a member of the MDC. She lived in the MDC stronghold. And I said to her, but she was elected on the women's list. She wasn't elected in the stronghold. And I said to her, why don't you run in your home constituency? You seem to be really good, you're popular, you're strong. And she said, well, it's too expensive and I'll lose. She's like, there's a guy who's been there for 20 years, he's popular, it's really expensive to run an election. So I know I can get easily elected on the women's list. And that indicates some of the structural problems that aren't actually being addressed when we say, well, the women can all go here and we'll leave the competitive powerful political space to the men. And it's actually replicated in our own council. We've got a mixed system. I think most of you are fairly familiar with local governments. But on the ward side, where we elect ward councillors, only 25% of our ward councillors are female, whereas almost half of our PR councillors, where parties can manipulate the lists, are men. Are women. So you see there's the sharp disparity where women sort of come out of the hard, cut and thrust, getting elected, by your community, and we use the PR list to kind of fill the gaps. So have we really solved the problem of power, or have we used mechanisms to make ourselves feel better? I think it's a bit of both. I think we have in part solved the problem. I think more women in office is a good thing, an important thing. But I think more women in office is not the end of the goal. I think that there's lots more things we need to consider. And I think that there's an important point here is that politics reflects society. If we don't raise women to be powerful, if we don't encapsulate power in the way we deal with women and young girls, it becomes very hard to then force that in a political environment. I call it secretary syndrome. Women are happy to be the secretary, but they're not happy to be the chairperson. And you'll often see on lists, we all try to be very good at including women, but there'll be a male chair and male deputy chair, and then a female treasurer or secretary, just to make it, look as though everything's balanced. And a lot of women aren't prepared to take on positions of power. They don't feel it's their place. And that's a problem with all political parties, to be honest. I'm not here to, analyze different political parties and what they do. And we've got all these bills that say we've got to come up with plans in public life to address patriarchy. But can we legislate against patriarchy? I'm not sure we can. We can to a degree. I'm not sure we can. These are things we have to think about because I don't have all the answers. So just in closing, I think I have 3 solutions, as it were. I think the first is that we have to understand power and representation as 2 different concepts. Just because you have women in public office doesn't mean women are making the decisions. And I think that's an important distinction that we have to keep in our minds as women in politics, women in society, as women in political structures. And I think we have to teach hard skills. Politics is a profession. You've got to know how to speak, how to debate, how to fight. You can't just go into office and be like, well, women must all support each other. Like, come on, guys, let's stand together. You've got to elect people who can do the job. You've got to elect people who are good, who are strong, who can fight, who can get the work done. And the other thing is that I think that this is a socio-economic package. Across the world, where women have better access, women are safer, women have better access to academic opportunities, women have better access to the economy, women generally have better and more meaningful contributions in public life. And I think that that's where we have to start. It can't just be, well, we fix it up here and hope the rest down here will resolve itself, because I think the past couple of years have shown it doesn't necessarily resolve itself. And the last thing is that I think we need to really focus on the idea of accountability. There's no use in you all voting for me, because that's hopefully what's happening here. And then I don't go do anything to just help any of you. If I don't do anything to help women, what's the point of voting for female candidates? What's the point of electing women if they don't do anything to help other women? So I think that accountability is also an important part of it, not just getting bums and seats and hoping for the best. So I think there's a lot of complexity here, and I certainly don't have all the answers, but those are really some of my observations after almost 11 years in public office.
All right. Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much, Nicole, for that insightful engagement. I think she said some of the things that are very powerful and we should really consider. But just one question that I have before I get into the house. You spoke about the political outcomes of women.
I just want to know now, what is the role of us in the civil society to really intervene in the strategies and really the programs or the developmental engagements to enhance women's, like you said, enhance women's hard skills, enhance women's capabilities in terms of their thinking capacity. So now what is our role within our society, the civil society in particular?
I think it's a double-edged sword. I think on one hand, women need the skills to get into politics, but I think we also have to have, and I mentioned that, we also have to have a mindset shift. You know, people often say, well, fit for purpose, it is what it is. I don't believe that men are naturally better at politics. In fact, I think it's the opposite, to be honest. But I think that we also need to have a mindset shift that allows for greater public participation by women in politics. So I think that there are hard skills that allow us to compete, but I think we also need to start teaching people that women are leaders and not, you know, supplementary humans that just facilitate the functioning of society. And I think that once we've got really strong female politicians who do the work, who are accountable, who can get things done, but also the societal understanding that that's the role of women, we will really get there. But it is a long game, you know, it's not something that can be solved overnight.
I like it when you mention the learning part, educating the part in terms of the society knowing the accountability. For example, she's a counselor. Some people don't know that we have to hold the counselors accountable for service delivery. So now it gets to the point of saying that what is the role really of the government structures to educate the society about these structures? You know, and two, what is the role of schooling now? Because like you say, everything is a learning system. You know, so what is the role of schooling to educate our learners, our children at a very young age to know that as a leader you must be this, that, and really, I personally think they will navigate the whole gender inequality, because from a young age, from the onset, you know that you're a leader and you will not be perceived based on your sex or your gender, but it will be because of your capability as a leader. So going back to my question really, what is the role of schooling, and two, what is the government doing, or what should the government do to really educate the society about the structures that are available within the local, the provincial, as well as the provincial, so the national structure?
Well, I think first of all, I think our schooling needs to just generally be better, and I think that puts a lot of people, particularly people who come from poorer homes, more rural areas, and really on the back foot, because they don't have the ability to compete at the same level. So I think also there needs to be more focused attention on teaching people skills that enable meaningful participation in public life. Myself and Brian Bengal were involved for many years in debating, and that teaches people logic, how to think, how to discuss ideas, and that's completely absent from our schooling system. You know, we're not taught how to think, how to rationalize, how to discuss ideas. So I think there's a complete lack of leadership in the schooling system, a complete lack of rationality, logic, all of the things that are needed for that. And I think, sorry, what was your second question?
My second question was speaking about accountability from the government side in terms of us people, the civil society. We don't know how to hold the councillors accountable for service delivery.
Yeah.
So now what can the government do really to educate the society? Us who don't know, like for example, the voter education. Some people don't know that if you don't vote, you are really promoting the next person. So those kind of information and dissemination of information.
Look, I think the government doing that can be problematic. I think that there is more that the IEC could do. I think that organizations like the DDP play a really important role. And I think it's critical because, we have really low voter turnout in this country, particularly amongst young people. And I think that a lot of people don't understand how the systems work, just even basic differences. If I tell people I'm a counsellor, in this room, most people would know, but most people think I'm like a psychologist counsellor. Most people don't know that kind of thing. And it happens more often than not that people are like, oh shame, bit stressful? Are you counseling co-inflation? I am, but you know. So I think that there needs to be a lot more work done. But I think South Africans also need to care more. You know, we've got this really hard-won democracy, and so many young people just have absolutely no interest in what's going on. And
time. I know we'll have the whole day. Please reserve your questions for Ms. Nicole. Just straight after Ms. Kize, we'll go to the panel questions. So Ms. Kize, over to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Program Director, and greetings to everyone. I'll try to be as short as I can. Program Director, I've timed myself here so that Nginga just cuts up, but I'll try to be as precise as possible. Program Director, delegates and invited guests, viewers in different digital platforms, members of the media, good morning. Maybe before I continue, Councillor Nicole, I think it's very important that I mention that I was raised by a bunch of women. And I'm what I am today without any really greater contribution from associations, the DDP. I thank you for inviting me to this important gathering to reflect on the importance of women in leadership as well as their role in strengthening our democracy. As a matter of principle, I wish to salute teachers, especially women, for playing an important role towards the provision of quality education to our children. Yeah. I am where I am because of teachers who laid the foundation for me and many others who are here today and who are bigger things, carrying big positions today, who are all here because of those women that wake up every morning to give quality education. We salute you, educators. I must admit that this is the first time I attended such a conference organized by DDP. I was intrigued by the invitation, and in particular the fact that we are discussing such a topic today. Now, as a member of the ANC Youth League, I always remind my peers and the public at large that the founding of the ANC was driven by intellectuals. So you can't really change the world if you refuse to think, and if you're lazy to think, it will be impossible for you to change the world. I also want to speak about how, especially I'll be biased with KwaZulu-Natal because we're here in this province, and this conference is taking place here in this province. I want to take a different shape, Program Director, on these issues of women participation. To say, positions alone are not enough. Being elected, for instance, I'm a national spokesperson of the ANC Youth League, and you'll think that I carry so much power, and I don't. So much power lies with few males within the political space. Now, when women stand up for themselves, we're told that we're allowed to, but women really need to start standing up for themselves. I want to believe that if Mama Winnie Mandela, for instance, had agreed or had conformed to the standards of the society of that time, she would have not been a heroine that we know her to be today. But she stood up and she fought. Like many women, like Ruth First, Mama Charlotte McCartney, many of them. Part of the things that are going to make us be able to change the society and to change how the society thinks about women is to call things by their names. Yes. We are faced with the situation where you can't say something is right, you say it's right. Because you are trying not to offend the next person. Now, I'm one person who's a believer of truth. I'm one person that believes that truth must be spoken. Whether it fits or it comforts you or it discomforts you, but it must be spoken. Because if we're going to continue to have kind of these conferences, we have a lot of dialogues, by the way, Program Director, and they are not yielding any beautiful results for women especially. Every August, we sit like this, we speak about how to empower women, we speak about how do we elect our women to be in positions of power, but there's nothing that we practically do. The organization that I come from, the African National Congress, has good policies, but when it comes to implementation, it does not happen. We sit like this, we spend government's money, we stay days in hotels, we go back to our normal lives. And there's nothing that really happens. Now, Program Director, I just want to take you to the fact that when women fight for themselves, you know, there's something that is said, and beautiful, thank you for quoting a man in this women's country. There's something that Denzel Washington says. He says, is the sheep preaching hate when he says, I'm not going to let the wolf eat me anymore? When the sheep finally stands up and say, I'm not going to let the wolf eat me anymore, next time he comes here, I will do whatever it takes to take him off my back. Is the sheep the violent one? Or is the wolf the violent one? Now women need to stand up for themselves because they are the ones who are oppressed. And women have suffered three kinds of oppression: classism, racism, and sexism. The challenges that are faced by a woman in suburbs is not the same as challenges that are faced by our mothers back in Kanta, where I come from. You suffer, one, for being a rural woman. Secondly, you also suffer for being black. You suffer even more for just being a woman. And I don't think that these are the things that we need to sugarcoat. And I would want today maybe to just clean my name to say, I'm definitely not a racist. I am for equality. And for as long as there are races that continue to benefit more than us as black people, we are going to speak. And we can't be shoved under the table and not speak about those things. And in speaking about these things, we're not saying we want to replace those that are already benefiting. We say we want to be part of the table. We want to find ourselves at the table. Now, here in KwaZulu-Natal, there are a few sectors that I want to speak about. The manufacturing sector has been for some time and still is the backbone of our economy here in KZN. It's a key labor-creating sector in KZN economy, as young people are calling upon the ANC government to ensure that women benefit from the black industries. But also, I must say that as much as we say the ANC government, but there are municipalities that are not led by the ANC. We call upon even those municipalities as well to prioritize women in all their sectors. Political power without economic power is useless. You can vote until you become gray, you can vote until Jesus comes back. But for as long as the economy continues to be in the hands of a minority, we are going to have a problem. We are not going to transform as a country. Speaking about the automotive sector, it is a particular sector that serves this province extremely well, and it is one, I'll finish right now, Program Director. Now, the automotive sector is a particular sector that serves this province extremely well, and is one that this province has paid particular attention to, a catalyst for economic development and job creation. Now, in closure, Program Director, I want to urge every woman that is here today to say it does not take you to be in politics to be a great woman. You can be a great woman in arts, you can be a great woman in business, you can be great wherever you are. And wherever you are, let no one shut your voice. Wherever you are, you represent us. And when we see you, whether you're in arts or in business, when we see you, we see ourselves. And we want to be as greater as Mama Winnie Mandela. We must say she did not die, she multiplied. Thank you very much for the
I just want you can just note from her speech that this is a national spokesperson indeed. I love when you say positions are not enough, talking is not enough, but what we should be implementing is practical solutions. And women, I just want to address this and really take a question of this, because we did note in her bio that she was recognized as a brave woman who stood up and went to the Phoenix during the unrest of the racial killings. And I think this panel discussion wouldn't be really enough if we don't talk about that. Just please run us through the conditions, the environment, the setting, the trauma, the emotional abilities and whatnot in terms of the unrest, and really what took place, and really what is your stance, especially concerning women in standing up against the unrest and the social inequalities.
Firstly, when the unrest happened, we sat with my colleagues and decided that we need to Firstly, we just wanted to go and visit the families really that have lost their loved ones, and we went there. It was an emotional thing. There is one guy who was a choreographer, a very decent guy. He was killed together with his brother. He was on his way to the petrol station. That's not a thug. He's not a criminal. He's a very decent man with a decent job. He was killed. And when I'm urging everyone and every South African to look things in our perspective, to say, when we went to visit the families, after that we went to the police station because we wanted to find out what's the progress, what is happening. Have the perpetrators been arrested? And when we got there, we got the acting provincial commissioner of police, who is a black woman. And she says to us, these killings are racially motivated. And we say, can you substantiate what you're saying? Give us facts. Why are you saying that they are racially motivated? She says, as a black woman, when I went to my own place of residence, I was racially classified. Now you're speaking about a high-ranking police official, racially classified. What are you doing? Because she was not even on uniform. What are you doing here? What is it that you're doing here? I want us to understand that there may be black people that are racist. There may be Indian people that are racist. There may be colors. There may be whites that are racist. I want us as a nation to agree that we need to isolate all racists altogether. We need to isolate them. We can't stand up and defend people that have shown what we call a prosperous South Africa. They show it a middle finger. We can't do that. We need to agree that really what happened in Phoenix was uncalled for, and it's a very painful thing. And really, we were disappointed also with how the government had its low pace and attending the issues. I mean, they would go to every other place but Phoenix. So I went to Phoenix with no bodyguards whatsoever. I went there myself because I understood that this is a burning issue. Someone needs to do something. Someone needs to say something. And I became that person, regardless of what could have happened to me, by the way. I went there when it was burning, with no bodyguards, with no speedy car or whatever. I went there because I understood that someone needs to speak some sense. And I can tell you now, in closing with the question that you asked me, that when we say we're not racist, that's what we're talking about, that we have identified, there's a task team that has been created, and a task team that has been created to bring about peace and harmony in that area is a task team that comprises of both Indians and black people. Because we're not racist, but we want to isolate racist people that are in our society.
No, they're very profound. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Pinkesa. And I think what I took from her response is that as women, we really need to stand for each other. And we really need to stand for our communities. But like you said, the unrest, everywhere was burning, but she took a stand and went there. So like we were saying all along, we need to be there. We need to be in full ground. Don't say I'm a woman, then sit down. Or I'm a woman, then I cannot do this. Yes, you can do it. Okay? Yeah. So now I'm just going to let into the house.
Is it possible that I could just come in on that?
Okay, please, you can.
I think it's really important that we address issues of racism. But I think that there was lots of irresponsible behavior during that time. And I think what is necessary is that we address that honestly. And I think Ms. Pinkesa's comments during that time, quite frankly, were irresponsible. I think that there were undoubtedly people in Phoenix who behaved in a terrible manner. There were people across the city who behaved in a terrible manner. But I think that there was a concerted political attempt to label Indians as racist across the board. And I think that that's something that we must really protect against. I don't want to turn this into a political back and forth, but I think that the idea that this was sort of a brave move to, stand up against racism, I think it fueled racial tensions, to be honest. And I think if we're going to be women in leadership and positions of power, then we must use that power responsibly. Lots of us were on the ground doing that work and calling for calm and calling for unity. But to go and say, that there is a broad problem with racism in the Indian community, I don't think was a fair comment or responsible at the time. And I think lauding it as, bravery is perhaps a risky move.
No, It is engagement, right? So everyone has their comments, and I like it when it gets heated like this because it means that we are really engaging. And remember, ladies, beautiful ladies, are you still here? Yes, so we're saying this is a safe space, an engagement space. We are learning, we're engaging, so everyone can critique, everyone can comment, agree. So I'm just gonna let, I don't want it to be a dialogue.
It's not gonna be a dialogue.
I'm just gonna let now Ms. Precious Mazibuko, but we're gonna take the comment. I'm just gonna let Ms. Precious Mazibuko to come forward because we really need to we really need to hear from the House. Not within this burning segment, but with what we are here, capitalizing really the political and the social frameworks to enhance the social, as well as the economic, achieve the national gender equality and inclusion. So please come forward, Ms. Precious. Let's give her a round of applause.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. And wait, I wanted to do something. A lot of people that know me know that I'm not a good singer, but I like singing. And I like music, and I think there's a song that really resonates with me that I wanted to open with. That was that. Mandla. And thank you very much, Muna Umhle. My sister, this one I found out today. Thank you again for the opportunity to DDP for allowing us to have these discussions. And I'm really pleased to see that the room is full with a mix of young and old women who are in different spaces, making changes and doing the things that are necessary that we've been talking about this morning about. We are in these places, we do have the power, let us take it up, let us do things differently, let us take the initiative, let us support each other. As one of the young people that are in my own spaces or in these political spaces, it really has been a difficult place to grow and flourish as a young person who wants to get into these politically charged spaces. And I really appreciate all the people that have been in these spaces and allowed me, of course, to grow and flourish. As mentioned, my name is Precious Mazibuko, and I'm going to facilitate this process where we're going to be discussing some of the comments that have come up from the panel discussion. And of course, people are always welcome to share your own thoughts and things that really resonate with you, and these are the opportunities we need to take and say things out loud, right? And this is a place where singakhala so ngoba sikhala sibaningi. The one sikhala sibaningi, there's a common thread between women in Phoenix, women in Imlazi, women in Wentworth, this is where I'm from. There is a common thread that we should find a place where we can join it and make sure that this chain that we have all created runs through all provinces throughout the whole country, and we can be in a place where next year we're not coming back to these spaces and talking about, hey, in my space, men are doing this, hey, in my place, I cannot flourish like this, right? There needs to be a progression in the way that we have these discussions where we are working to end it, so that next year, we need to talk about something else. Maybe next year we talk about, as women, other issues, body issues. Look, body issues is a major problem in this country. A lot of women, of course, get into depression and other mental instability because of these other things. Let's engage about those kinds of things and start really building each other, person by person. Right, I've said a lot. I think I'll just open up the floor in discussing and allowing people to comment. We do have, I think in the different venues, we do have mics in the centers. I also hope that in the next room, the mic has been fixed. What I would like to do is also allow, I see some hands, and I also really would encourage new faces and new voices to be able to speak. I mean, Omuntu is welcome to say what they like. Please do not feel pressured to speak English. Make sure that you are able to articulate and express yourself however you are comfortable. Right. Can I see a round? I'll take a round of 3 hands. First round of 3. Either comments and questions directed at the speakers, our wonderful speakers. Can I just allow new spaces? For Usne, Nomfundo, or Mama Mana.
No, hello. Yes, my name is Sne. I'm from Ilovu, Bongo. No, my question maybe is, I'll just pick up from the last point which we were discussing, which is the Phoenix issue and the unrest at large. I was in a leadership position in one of well-known organizations, NPO, here in Durban. It was in Nadal at large. So it happened, I attended a march, or I participated in an action towards the injustices that happened in Phoenix, and I was suspended under investigation. So that didn't sit well with me, because we are in these NGOs, we are in these spaces which somehow they alienate themselves from the actual thing that is happening in the world out there. So obviously these NGOs, these spaces, they are funded. They are funded, and they're being funded sort of like gives them a position to, if issues like this happen, then we take a stand, not to say anything, because obviously the people who fund us, and we might be in a position where we'll wake up and we don't have funds to continue doing our work. So I was suspended, and I then put in, because what happened in Phoenix, it was uncalled for. It was something that is hurtful. I'm still a bit emotional about it, because something really close to my heart, which I've never spoken out about it, happened in all the processes. And sadly enough, the organization didn't become sensitive to me, I'm sorry. Woman power. Yeah, I'm back. So I hear the debates about things that were said. There was a lot happening. A lot of people wanted to have a voice, because as Black people and as a Black woman, we have been in a position where we didn't have a voice in this country. We went there in 1956, but our mothers and our grandparents who were there, they fought. That's why we have August 9. And we can't keep quiet when issues like what happened in Phoenix, like, we are not separating the Phoenix matter from the unrest at large, but then it has to be separated, because it's a different, completely different. People were looting and lots of, but then when you kill people because of the color of their skin, and we say that This is a democratic country. And you want me to keep quiet and not do anything about it because I hold a position in your organization. Because I hold the leadership position in your organization. And if I stand up and stand up for change, it's called unethical and I'm being suspended. Other than that, I was really heartbroken. You know. So enough about the emotional things, but then what I wanted to say is we suffer an identity crisis as women here in South Africa. And why is it that so? There's a shift, a generational shift from Abo Mama Bear to us, the youth, trying to find our feet in this country. In trying to have power, trying to make sure that we are heard, trying to grapple with the political change, the systematic change, the change in the economic. We try to get educated, making sure that our voices are heard, while we're also trying to please our families. Some of us marry very young, so there's also that pressure. You're trying to be a wife. Where else you go to an institution, you hear feminism, all of those things, and you're just trying to make sure that no one is taking advantage of you. You're just trying to make sure that there's no political party, there's no structure that's taking advantage of first your blackness. I'm sorry, it's very difficult to separate the issues of color, especially now. You just can't. You can't separate the issues of color. We suffer because we are black, And this thing of what happened in Phoenix it has been a wake-up call because we always like, this thing of colorism is gone. I'm sorry. I had so much to say.
Yeah, and
but then
this day is only for one day.
Yeah, I hope that I was able though to articulate my question. Like, how do we then me as a snake, and then the leadership position that I serve, my beliefs and the beliefs of the organization that I come from, how do we balance that?
Okay, ma'am. Got you. Thank you very much for your inputs, Ntlantla. And look, your tears or not, you shouldn't hide your tears. We feel you. We have been in similar situations. We understand what it is that you're going through. And this is a chance for you to be able to reflect and get all of that out. And I mean, it's really unfortunate that we have to go through these traumatic experiences, but there are lessons in all of the things that happen. And the onus is on us to take lessons from all of that and become stronger and better people and be better leaders. Thank you. Please, if you can, 1 minute, ma'am. 1 minute.
Very good morning. Guys, I know I have the gift of the gab, but I feel like I'm being shut. But it's fine. I'm not going to have to cover the penguin. So I'm going to have to I think I wasn't going to ask a question, but I felt I was triggered about Paramile. Precisely, my question is, how do we achieve quality education? For one, we have been taking curriculums from other developed countries that do not even translate into addressing the needs of our country. Number two, we have insufficient resources to meet a decent education. And you find that low-income communities are most flustered by all of these statistics, especially now that it's been repeatedly a failure from the government to address this, and also it's not an issue of accountability. It then affects the child that is going to the school because it can change their life. There's dropouts, there's a whole lot of other issues. But amongst this, for me as an environmental activist, is addressing health inequalities. Because low-income communities, they walk to school for kilometers, for hours. There's no public transportation. Pitlet trees are there. And as a woman, I feel it also affects a woman's health, her safety, her dignity, and her privacy. Because if she's going to a pit latrine that is broken, it might be someone might go in there, she might be raped and other issues, but I just leave it there. How do we then achieve quality education, translating from what we have in policy?
Thank you so much. Very good, very good. Thank you. Very good. Your students have brought to the questions. Yes.
Okay, good morning everyone. My name is Keynote Address and I work for the YMCA, based here in Durban. I hope I don't sound controversial. The reason why I decided to stand up is to get feedback from all the panelists, including Pam. Is there a role for men in women empowerment? The reason why I'm asking, as the YMCA, we do work with a lot of young men, some of them who are ex-convicts, very vulnerable, and we try to resuscitate them and make them resilient again. I also happen to be a mother of 2 boys, and also been born with 3 brothers. So I sort of like understand the males. I've always been blamed that I favor men. I don't know whether I do or not, but that's just my life has been. I've had men coming to me crying, saying, we don't want to be rapists. We don't want to be using drugs. It's the way we've been socialized. We don't want to be paying for your wills. We don't want to be supporting you financially. We so much want a society where everybody is self-sufficient so that I can be a true face. I can be a true widow. Those are the names of my sons. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Wonderful. So I'll give an opportunity for our speakers to respond to the questions that are directed at you. And while that's happening, I'm aware that there are 3 people in the next room who also have questions. If they can prepare themselves, they'll speak after our speakers have given input.
Oh, okay. I just want to touch on the role of education, and then you were asking a question of how do we then promote equality and quality education in the midst of all, and you mentioned some of the things that are really intriguing, because like you said, the education system that we have currently in our country is not really suitable for the needs of our community. And it starts with us in terms of how do we critique that? You know, because as much as we can say we can do this, we can do that in these engagements, but we need to go out there, write letters, go to the parliament and do this, because you must know that education is used as a tool to control. You know, so we need to be part of the engagement that is challenging the current education system, because we are saying it's not really suitable or responding to our needs as a community. And like we said, we adopting curriculum systems day in, day out. And we don't do something that is uniquely suitable for our system, for our needs, and we are doing something that is cooperative or that's going to enable us to be lifelong learners. So what I'm saying today, to the floor, to the house, is that we really need to think about solutions and not really talk about problems the whole entire time, but now be part of the solution. And in doing that, we need to think, what do I need? Bring it to yourself. What do I need? What are the basic needs that you need? What do you need for you to be a lifelong learner? What do you need for you to sustain post-matric opportunities? With those answers are the very answers that are going to determine the system that you need to have as a South African education system. Because if you're saying we're going to follow this certain curriculum, that certain curriculum, they did it based on their problem. So in answering your questions, I'm really posing a challenge also on you and on us, and saying that we really need to be part of the movement, or really the transformation of education, in really enabling or enhancing the system to suitably feed our needs as a community. And like I said, our contexts in South Africa are so different, so we really need to cater for those needs to ensure lifelong learning. Thank you so very much.
I think just to touch on that, what's something we can also do is encourage indigenous knowledge systems.
Yes.
Bring that to the forefront. Let it not be a side discussion of, oh, okay, there's also this other form of education. Let's make that in the center of our discussions about education.
Definitely.
Nicole, I'm not sure if you mind answering the last question or the input.
Yeah.
Especially because since you're in politics, and that's, both of you are in politics, but those are highly male-dominated spaces, and you have women, of course, advocating for women.
Sure. So I think it was Pumeza that answered the question. I think the most obvious answer is that gender inequality in many respects harms men as much as it harms women. And I think that if we can get that idea across, that this unequal society we live in is not a society that only harms us, it harms everybody. And I think that that is a deep cause of the problem. Look, I think that many of the issues you refer to seem to stem from addiction and a lot of the social problems that we've got going on in this country. But I think that if we can create the common understanding that this is effectively an us problem. Often when we have women's discussions and gender-based violence discussions and all these things, you'll see a room full of women, We aren't the ones assaulting each other. We need to bring men into the conversation more and be willing to understand their perspectives, even if we find them infuriating, and get them to understand at the same time that the situation of perpetual inequality is one that also harms them. We see these constant discussions on Twitter about weaves and girlfriend allowances and all of these things. Men will complain about it, but they'll be happy to be part of a system that allows it to continue. So I think bringing men into the conversation more is important, but I think also deepening the understanding of why and how these things exist and how they affect us all is certainly a good start.
Maybe I can just add on education, firstly, I'll just come to two questions, and I'll be very quick. On education, I think firstly what we need to do, there is a problem of stigmatizing FPT colleges. When you go to an FPT college, it's as if you are not smart enough, or you did not meet qualifications for you to go to university, and it's not the case. The truth is that we believe in different things, we want different things in life. I may be interested in something that I can find in a civic college, and I think we need to also try and speak about how civic colleges have been stigmatized. But secondly, we need to change the education system. The education system in South Africa, the truth is that it teaches you to be a professional slave. And by professional slave, I mean you wake up in the morning, you wear your weave, you wake up, you get to work at 8, you come out at 4. It does not teach you to be an employer, it does not teach you to be the one that, can play golf on Wednesday, You always have to go to work. You always have to be a person that goes to work from 8 to 5. So I think it needs to change. But on the last question that Umama asked about the involvement of men and the role of men, I do not think that we are in a position, or when we speak about equality, we want to replace patriarchy with matriarchy. We are speaking about equality. And when we say we do not want to replace patriarchy with matriarchy, it means men must be involved in the conversation. But in their involvement in the conversation, it must not be an involvement that wants us as women to feel that they're doing a favor for us. It shouldn't be like that. They shouldn't come to our space and dictate the terms and describe what women empowerment is. We should be the one that describes what women empowerment is, and then they come in and assist us on our own property.
Thank you, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much to wonderful input, guys. I know that there are speakers. Are there speakers ready? Great. Can we have the first speaker from the next room, please?
From Colombia. I represent impending Africa. I'm making my cancer from Colombia. What do I know? So I'm representing impending Africa. The speaker, the Cecil Pinkesa, and the counselor. There is a speech that I told about the self-confidence, the importance of being confident as women. I think most of women, we have the lack of confidence, more especially in trade skills. Government is failing us on the trade skills. They're always giving us the soft skills. I'm a trade artisan, but I ended up not doing my skill because every time when I go to the trade site, I feel scared and I have that fear and a lack of confidence because most is dominated by men, and they don't take our product as like a quality or what, because now us as women, they don't take us as like to do anything good. So our local government and the government and our community councillors, they fail us. They exclude us to everything, every opportunity that they are in the community. More especially in Colombia, if you go to Colombia, you can cry. Most women there, most of them, they ended up drinking, having a lot of kids, housewives getting abused by their husband because now they're kneeling in front of the men to have food to go in the stomach. But there's a lot of development there. But to those development, they don't even get the opportunity to go to do anything in that development, to do anything in that development. And if they go there, they only go to sweep the floors. They don't get the skill. And most of the time, they are the breadwinners. They are the ones who are giving the food to the children. So it's very painful to our government. It's failing us. So Imbalances Africa is a non-profit organization. So that non-profit organization it was formed.
Mama, I think, can you, just because of time, we have to cut down the speech circle and circle, Mama. Yeah, we'll get responses from the room.
Yes. So now, we even sent the proposal to every municipality.
Okay, Mama.
Yes.
Let's
so
do
now
this. We're going to have breakaway sessions, and those are spaces where you meet other women from other places, and then you can share my experiences out loud.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Can we have the next speaker, please, for 1 minute?
Thank you to the DDP for organizing the day, and thank you to our program director as well as everyone who has attended. It's not a question or a comment, but being a practical person, biology, at times we need to use practical examples or practical things to define something. Right now, I hate using the word something and not giving naming things, just like how we spoke before. Okay. I would like to use myself as an example for everyone who wants to define the oppression of a young woman in South Africa. Number one, my skin color, Unongolego is black. Black is black. Being defined as a person who doesn't have my hips, all the things comes as an oppression to a black woman. Yes.
I understand. I know it's important what you want to share, but if you can just
be short.
Not even be short. Let's refrain maybe just from explaining too much.
Okay.
Either get to it sounds weird to say get to the point. Please get to the point.
Okay. So can it be clarified that what is stopping the other women who are already in the leadership position to pave the way for us as the younger generation? Because at times we do not get the direct formative on how to go about stepping. And in case whereby we need to apply, we are told that you do not qualify due to 1, 2, and 3. At times we have to use our bodies to get to position. Please,
thank you very much. Yes.
Greetings everyone. My name is Bulila. So mine is going to be. So I think we should also look to our bubble and how men use that as an advantage not to give higher position to women. So my question would be, how do we educate and also inform men that for a woman being an emotional being, it doesn't determine how she's gonna for women, to see emotional, it doesn't mean we are weak. They use an aspect of being weak as a way we can't hold bigger positions because that's my question. How do we educate men that being an emotional being doesn't necessarily determine a way of leading?
Thank you very much for those inputs. I just want us to, everybody is welcome to engage and think about and really understand the questions that have been asked, because essentially they're not directed to the three ladies in front, they're directed at all of us, right? Because all of us, we do have senior positions in certain places, and there are women and girls who are juniors to us. And if those juniors are having these problems, we should also take responsibility and help in assisting in getting sure that these problems end. Thank you very much, Mama. I'm really sorry. We're going to have breakaways. We're going to be in groups. Of course, we're going to have guiding questions, and each of us can really get into the crux of the matters of today. And this is what happens, actually. It's really tough to be a facilitator of these kinds of discussions because it evokes a lot of thought and input from all of us. Because we all have personal experiences. Thank you again, ladies. Unfortunately, we're not going to engage with those particular questions, but there will be a time when we do that. And I understand that we're going to have another speaker, Manje, who, yes, and please, thank you very much, ladies, for your inputs. Give them a round of applause.
I would just like to, I'm very practical. I've been a dancer for so many years, and Cecil Pinkesa mentioned Utilani Kumalo, who was killed in the Phoenix massacre. I've been with KCAP, which is Kwamashi Community Advancement Project. It's a music dance project facility within Kwamashi. I've been with KCAP for more than 10 years. Budelani, who was killed together with Umshana Wake Umloli, was on his way to petrol, as mentioned, and unfortunately he was burnt alive. And in the Buguti, he was for social cohesion, he was for the community, and he employed Indians within the Phoenix community to various international projects, to various international exchange. And the first time I went overseas was through Ubudelani. That was more than 15 years ago. My first international experience was in France, in Nantes, where I was taught how to dance, how to practicalize, how to be confident, how to be bold. To be that tablet that I am today was a contribution that Ubudelani. So we have so many people that were within that statistic of the Phoenix massacre, but unfortunately their names are not as mentioned. So I really wanted to mention Ubudelani and the immense contribution that he had, not only in South Africa, but internationally. We talk about social cohesion through such dialogues, we talk about social cohesion in different contexts, but there is social cohesion through performance arts, through music, through dance, which was part of his stance, and I'm also continuing through my PhD, which is on reinvigorating arts, culture, and Ubuntu as a commodity. So I really wanted to mention that. And practically, we spoke a lot about equality, which is great, but we didn't speak of equity. Practically, equality is all about, okay, we have these who's taller than him. I want to make a practical example. Equality obviously is giving the same resources to Abantu. He's from Phoenix, he's from Guamas, just out of the blue. I'm just creating this as I see. We have the two gentlemen. They need a camera for their work. We're giving Puti camera. We're giving Puti a camera. It's two equipment, same brand, everything. Kwamashu, Phoenix. But with the camera, the gaze needs to be here. Mele abone in the Aishuta Uputi now, if Ella and the gaze is here, he needs to shorten himself. Uputi, if the gaze is here and he's shorter, it means equity, how it's so important. We take this chair or any block, to support, it's the same framework. For him to be able to see. So it's very important when we discuss equality, we also mention equity. Because yes, we are given the same resources, but we are not from the same backgrounds. We are not of the same situation. So in these dialogues, I think it's very important that when we speak about solutions, think about where we come from. If you're going to say we're going to give away medals, or we'll just build a tennis court in Wamash, tennis courts in Durban, or tennis courts in somewhere, do a feasibility study and to see are there people who will utilize the tennis court in Wamash, or it's going to only be utilized in Idepe North because they are familiar with what is presented. So I really just wanted us to pause there and go for EET break, and then we'll just introduce our speaker straight after the tea break. Thank you very much.
To give responses to some of the questions and comments, and then final remarks.
Program Director, Uguti, to come back, Sisi, as Ibongile is cut.
I will start with this last, it's not a question, it's a cry. We are single parents and we're raising boys and girls. And how can we, make it different? The only way you can make it different is for you to stop wanting to be a father. You can never be a father because you are not a father. The challenge that I am talking again on experience, I raised my children after what happened, 2 girls, and one day they told me that you are overwhelming us because you want to be utata and mama at the same time. And it is too much for us to take. So it happens. It's very easy to fall into that trap. You're not a man. You don't know the man's world. Don't put yourself in a very challenging space that you're not going to manage. Allow the uncles, allow allow the neighbors. Unfortunately, we understand the society here has changed to be something else. But keep a conversation. No boy. Understand some things you don't know because you're not utata, but you'll investigate. And one thing that we always don't want to say, but we want to be that's the woman in us. We always want to be superwoman in everything, and we end up being nothing. So learn to say, I do not know, my boy. It's very interesting, conversation that you're raising. Please allow me space. I will research, I will check, and come back to the child. But never be wanting to be a mother and a father. You are the mother. Play that role perfectly well, because that's what you know. So and again, when I stand here and I speak, and that's your kingdom. Don't think I've got all the answers into the questions, but most responses will be based on experience. Most responses will be based on what I read. Most responses will be based on what I have experienced. So I want you to be able to balance that you can never be a mother and a father. Please acknowledge that. And I want to link this with the first speaker who said we are wounded. What the most important thing is the acknowledgement. You need to acknowledge. And not only acknowledge, forgive yourself. Forgive yourself. the situation that has caused your wound. Forgive the situation that has contributed to you being wounded. And I want to caution you, don't expect the situation to come back and ask for an apology. No, whatever situation, forgive yourself and forgive the circumstances that led you to be wounded and move on and live life. Don't wait for Utaka boy to come back and ask for forgiveness. Don't wait for your manager or to come back and apologize. Forgive him or her. You will have peace. There's nothing that is toxic as anger. And we hold on to anger like we're gonna be millionaires. If anger has anything to do with money, we would be millionaires. The way we like to hold on to anger. And it does not need somebody next door. It needs you. And again, remember, I am talking some of the experiences. I know what I'm talking about. Forgive yourself. Acknowledge that I'm angry. Acknowledge that I'm wounded. Be sure of what made you to be angry. What made you to feel this way. And we had this, most of you will agree with me, we had this that was written all over in our student years. God grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change the things that can, and wisdom to know the difference. It was just a thing in your words. Practice it now. Practice it now. Practice. God grant me the serenity. You know when my girls are coming to me with problems, the first thing I ask, is it something that is within your management? Can you control this problem? No, Mama, that's right. I don't need to give him or her an answer. She needs to find a solution, and I support that solution. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Remember, I said to you, a challenge yet we would like to be superwoman. Tina, if bekuya ngokunokwethu sifuna twala yonke society sifuna ubamba uyesu sithwale yonke zonke ingxaki zabantu, and in the process you forget about your wounds. You're dealing with other people's wounds, and that's very dangerous. So acknowledge that you're angry, that you're wounded, and also deal with what has caused that. Another point that was raised, when you talk education, I love education, guys. Education is my life. And I want to challenge two things in response to that question. We still have a challenge in terms of us parents not playing, a bigger role. I always want to change or work towards changing the scenario that teachers think they know about our children more than us, them. We are the first teachers in those children. And how do we make use of that? How do we make use of that? You need to have a conversation with the teacher so that your child can see the balance between umama kunye notisha, so that that notion that this is what my teacher said, mama. Yes. And also I want to challenge you, it does not only happen at school. People who are married, they know abantwana always find where can I bazaya kumama bafike kumama athi mama I said no baye kutata atutata yakumama so abantwana are very clever in terms of setting ifila which is the weakest link in these two, and they use that even when they don't want to do homework, and when you teach them homework, you show them homework, and this is not what my teacher said. She does not want to do that. She wants to watch cartoons. PlayStation. Yes, and abantwana can take advantage of every situation. So in curriculum yetu, I love curriculum yetu. from birth to fall. It talks about identity. I cannot mention all the elders now, but if we can teach about the identity from the beginning, and there are 6 elders, early learning strategies that guide teaching and learning. Remember I said we've got good curriculum, but our teachers are not well trained in understanding it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Ruby. That brings us to the end of today's conference. For me, my job is done. Before I sit down, I'd like to thank DDP for extending the invitation. I really appreciate it. I do not take such opportunities lightly. I'm thankful that I'm afforded this opportunity. And just my parting comment is that we all have something to offer. That's what I always say. Whether it's education, your expertise, your skills, but each and every one of us has something to offer. And even if it's a listening ear, but you all have something to offer. And the best solution is for us to just mentor a girl child or boy child next to us, whether it's in our own spheres, in our own communities, or even in our homes. Just make sure that we do not leave the boy child and the girl child behind. Because oftentimes we empower the girl child to be self-empowered, to be self-knowledgeable, and then they end up being with a man who's not empowered, ending up having these cycles of gender-based violence, because obviously the man was left behind, not even afforded such organizations such as the DDP. So I really think that we need to make sure that whatever skill, whatever knowledge, whatever expertise that we have, just pass it down to the next person close to you, whether it's a girl child or boy child close to you. But from me, thank you very much. Now I'd like to call upon Cecil Pinkesa to do the conference summary, who will also do the closing, and lastly, Umbali will do the closure and vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you all for the informative and engaging discussions that we've had today. Thank you mostly to all our guests, our speakers, and facilitators. I know at some points in some of the sessions, the discussions were very heated, but the facilitators were able to hold it down and continue the conversations. Our keynote speaker, Pamela, mentioned that power is supposed to reside with people, not within people. She also alluded to the conservative nature of the system and its inflexibility. She suggested a paradigm shift and also suggested that since we are able to place or vote men into power, into positions of power, we can reclaim and redirect that power to ourselves. The speaker, Councillor Nicole, brought to our attention that we shouldn't confuse political leadership for political power. She highlighted 3 important points: the importance of understanding power and representations as 2 different concepts, that in our fight for the inclusion of women, it also should be ideally women who can speak, who can debate, and who are able to get the work done. And hence this needs to start from a young age. And thirdly, she also mentioned that how women living in societies where socially and economically they are privileged or are advantaged, they are able to have better and more meaningful contributions to public life. Our other speaker, Cecil Pinkesa, also highlighted that political positions are not enough as they don't necessarily equate to power. She stressed the importance of calling things as they are, not sugarcoating. She also highlighted that we should always consider women's issues intersectionally, considering that women are marginalized by classism, racism, and sexism. Mama Ruby highlighted the importance of finding ourselves amongst the many gifts that she mentioned, and she challenged us to not depend on people to speak on our behalf. She also mentioned that amongst the key areas of reform should be inclusivity and accountability. And she also challenged us by saying that instead of competing, we should collaborate and actually know what it is that we want. Thank you all for such an engaging and fruitful conference. Thank you.
Good day, colleagues. Thank you very much for joining us for the Women, Democracy and Leadership Conference. And thank you for staying until this long. I know it's very hard to stay for this long. My engagement knowing that there's COVID. We tried our best to be in line with the regulations IV COVID. I'd like to thank our speakers, Cecil Pinkesa, Pamela Menemo, Mamrobi Mutawung, as well as Nicole Graham. I'd like to thank our chairperson, Siabonga Sisi, and thank our facilitators, our service providers, co-donor in their absentia. Thank you to people who are joining us via Zoom. Thank you to our program director. And thank you, our delegates, as well as the members of the media. I know we have politicians here as delegates. We have business women, we have women within the civil society, religious groups, and everywhere else, in every other department. So thank you so much. We know you sacrificed your time to be here, so we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you. Please give yourselves a round of applause. We tried our best to ensure that we accommodate as many women as we can, but unfortunately we couldn't, so we had to accommodate ourselves through using the other space, although we had some challenges, so nothing ever goes smoothly in such things, but yeah, we really appreciate your patience and being here. So right now, the lunch is served in 2 venues because of our numbers. It is served downstairs as well as upstairs. So the group that is in this room will need to go downstairs, and the group that is on the other room will use the venue upstairs. I'm sure our colleagues can give you a directive. Before you go, just the directive. This room